everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you for being here once again. Welcome to the Lymph Lounge, the conversational podcast about cultivating a state of flow in our bodies and our lives. Today on the show, we are expanding on the theme of letting go of resistance, and we will be discussing emotions. Remember that, as discussed in the last episode, one of the three medicines that lymphatic system responds to extremely well is vibration medicine. And emotions carry with them a vibration. Some emotions have a low vibration and can have a tendency to pull you down, pull your vitality down, your radiancy down, your energy down. And some emotions are higher. Emotions are deeply tied to lymph flow, and even Oriental medicine disciplines puts emotions at the core of their theories. In traditional Chinese medicine, core organs are associated with emotions, and those emotions can affect the vitality and the balance of those organs. So today I am sharing with you an interview I did last year with Lois Hollis on the topic of shame-guilt. And I invite you to stick around after the interview, as I will be sharing about the free resource for this week, which is the Cultivating Emotions framework. It's a series of mindfulness exercises to help have a new perspective on emotions and their role in wellness. So without further ado, here's a little bit about our guest today, Lois Hollis, as well as the wonderful interview we did together. Lois is a Shameguilt educator, counselor, filmmaker, and author who coined the word Shameguilt. She is here to help us shift our opinion on shame and guilt. Lois has always been a trailblazer as she helped develop one of the first kidney hemodialysis units in the U.S. at the Thomas Jefferson University in 1966. Today, she not only shows us why shame-guilt has led us to believe we are victims incapable of stellar lives, but also how to make friends with our inner critic and kick shame-guilt out of our lives. Her impactful story that she's going to share with us today shows us the immense power we reclaim when we release the shame-guilt from our inner selves. So Lois, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. It is such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here and to shed some light on the very bad misbehaving shame-guilt.
Yes. You have an incredibly interesting specialty, which is shame-guilt. I found it very interesting when I found you. And it is such an important conversation to have, and I'm glad to have you on to chat about that topic. And you coined the term shame-guilt. Can you tell us more about shame-guilt and how you came up with the term? So you created that.
Yes, well, I had to heal because my mind was going shame one place and guilt the other. They say shame's bad, guilt's good. Well, there's no healthy poison as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now I'll tell you how this happened. I'm a nurse, so I understand things. When you have a virus or a bacteria in your brain, they call it meningitis. If you have the same virus or bacteria in your lungs, they call it pneumonia. The same bacteria or virus in your liver, they call it hepatitis. Now, does that make sense? It just makes you scattered, like, oh, I got hepatitis, I don't have pneumonia. But you get the same antibiotic for all of those organisms.
Yeah, do you mean like labels, kind of?
It's labeling.
Yeah.
So you have hepatitis and you get antibiotic BXY. You have meningitis and you get antibiotic BXY. You get the same treatment. They just call it different things because it's in different organs.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Now that's the problem with the shame-guilt thing. That we have two nervous systems, Genevieve.
Mm-hmm.
Is that saying your name right, Genevieve?
Yes.
It's a beautiful name.
Oh, thank you.
You have the unconscious nervous system and the conscious nervous system, but it's still the nervous system. So shame operates on the unconscious nervous system, and that makes sense because it's nothing like, oh, it's very deep, dark kind of thing. And guilt's on the conscious nervous system, which we see all the time, but it's still the same thing. And shame, guilt I can't think of another word like da da da. So I just had to put them together, because when you put them together, your mind goes together. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you say, I don't have any shame, I just have guilt. Well, you work on guilt, but the shame feeds the guilt. So if you don't get rid of the shame, you're just riding around a circle.
Kind
Shame,
of treating the symptom kind of thing.
yeah, shame makes more guilt. Guilt makes more shame. Shame
Mm-hmm.
makes more guilt. Guilt makes more shame. So to separate them, you'll never get anywhere. You're on a merry-go-round and you guys stop the merry-go-round.
Mm-hmm.
So I put them together because they have the same treatment. Now, I know that they define shame as not feeling good enough, and guilt means that you did something wrong. But it's still not good enough, right? I mean,
Yes.
you can try, and that doesn't help me to heal, to hear the definition. Like, okay, but how does that help me to heal? But when you put them together and say it's an energy coming into you, you go, oh, then there's hope that I can heal. And that's what I'm about today, is to tell people they're not stupid, they're not dumb, they're not victims. They did not get the right information, and nobody did until now.
And you mentioned that shame and guilt are the lowest state we can have. Can you elaborate a little bit on what that low state means and what it does to us when we are in that low state?
And that's awesome. And then I really give credit to Dr. David Hawkins, who now lives in heaven. He's the one that took each emotion and gave it a certain energy number. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it goes from positive to negative. And the highest state that a human, you, me, anybody, any human can have is enlightenment. And we all know that from spirituality. And that number comes in at 700,000 with 30 zeros to the 30th power. Do you believe that? 700,000 with 30 zeros. That's how large of an energy our highest state can be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, as we progress among the emotions, we get depressed or anxious or regret, hatred. Our energy goes down in energy. You know, the quality of the energy is not as much. The big point break from positive to negative emotions is at 200. 200.
Mm-hmm.
That's all, 200. And that starts at anger and hatred and regret. And then we get to the lowest state, and it's shame and one's guilt. Even put them together. But they come in at a 10 and a 20, from 700,000 to 10.
So that's what we call a low vibration.
Yes. And what do you do with the low vibration? You're really in a hole.
Oh, yeah. You're feeling stuck for sure.
So what is after 10 or shame, guilt? What's after 10? Nothing. It's
0.
why people who are suicidal contemplate that the world would be better without them, because they're not good enough to be living. I have been in that state. I know what that is, and it makes no sense to say that, but shame, guilt doesn't mean that you're in a logical, rational state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're operating in the lowest state possible, my message today is get out of shame, guilt state. How do you do that? You call a friend. You go outside for a walk. You got to talk to somebody. If you don't have any friends, call the store next to you, and they'll give you the business hours. Call a hotline. You have to get out of the shame, guilt energy, because it has no solution.
Mm-hmm.
I also have my readings from Spirit on my website. Now is the time. It's on the front page. You can just click on it and download 20 pages of my writings that help to bring your energy back up to a loving space. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't be in the shame guilt state because there's no solution. Now, what do? You just say no. Now, it's okay to be regretful. People say, oh, you shouldn't have any regrets. Well, it's a lot better than being in shame guilt.
Mm-hmm.
One client that I had a while ago came to me because she was severely guilt ridden because she couldn't help her alcoholic mother heal. And you know, and I know, if someone doesn't really want to heal, you can't make them heal.
Yes. Yeah.
You above anybody know that one. So I suggested to her to have regret that she couldn't help her mother. Don't feel guilty, feel regret. Okay, it's not the best emotion, but it's better than guilt. So with her regret, she started programs and wrote different books to people that were recovering from alcoholism and created a great community of helping each other out of the alcoholic disease. Wow. See, regret has a solution. Regret I couldn't help my mother, but I can help other people.
Yeah. So it seems like she didn't feel as stuck and she actually took action.
Yes, guilt has no action but suicide. Let's be real here. Guilt serves you no way. You don't get smarter. You don't suffer. You don't get more brownie points from God. Nothing is better. Guilt is no good for any reason. And the church, some churches say guilt is a moral emotion. Give me a break. That is not godly.
Yeah. Do you find sometimes people don't really realize that they're in that state?
Well, people say, oh, I've never had shame. I feel guilt once in a while, but I never felt shame. So I said, have you ever been depressed or angry? Oh, yeah. All negative emotions came from shame, guilt, energy.
Because they're at the bottom.
They're just
right?
a matter of how much shame, guilt is there. You know, like hurt has less shame, guilt, and hatred has more shame, guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And guilt is like the end. You can't be in guilt. So I say to you, you have to get out. And if you can't get out, you call a friend, any store, Walmart or Target, and they'll give you the hours of the store. At least you got to change your mindset.
Yeah, you can kind of snap out of it.
You got to snap out of it. And they go, oh, I feel regret. Okay, that's a step up. Congratulations.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you were in that state at some point in your life. Could you tell us more about your healing journey? Because I love hearing about people's unique stories and what led them to where they are today. So could you tell us a little bit more about that and your journey and how it led you to where you are today in relation to the shame guilt?
Okay, well, I'm 79, so I'm not going to take up 5 hours. I'm just a very active person. I started the first kidney hemodialysis unit in the United States in 1966. I traveled all around setting up home dialysis and talking. And
when you were a nurse?
When I was a nurse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've done some big things, great things, right? I lost 3 children, 3 babies, 3 miscarriages, and then I had 3 babies, 3 children. But you would say that's pretty good. And I'm active and I'd like to tap dance. And then all of a sudden I fall down around 50 and I'm depressed in bed. Like, what happened? It was all the abuse that I had as a child. It came forward. If you don't take care or heal the past, it comes into your present. And it doesn't come sometimes to your 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, but it does come into your present. And you go, what did I do wrong that all this is happening? Well, it's just because your past hasn't been cleared. So my journey was mainly finding a very good chiropractic healer to heal all the broken bones and brain traumas and things of that sort. And then someone, you know how you have circles in therapy, they have a community, you keep talking to each other and, give each other courage and confidence.
Yes.
One person said, Lois, what do you do about shame? And I went, what an odd word. Never thought of it. here I am 100% in shame and don't know that I am in it.
Wow.
Right?
How old were you at that point when all that happened?
Probably 55, something like that, 60.
Wow. So in your mid 50s to have kind of that enlightenment must have been a lot for you.
Yeah. And it was like, so I went to the library. You didn't have Google. You just had to go to the library to find it. The only book on shame was Bradshaw's book, Shame is a Sickness of the Soul. I went, And then I have a detective mind, whatever that is. Yeah, and my mind won't stop until I find a solution. And also, I eventually remembered I had a near-death experience in my childhood from the abuse. So somehow I just know things. I can't tell you how. I didn't go to university to study shame. I mean, they don't even have a book on shame and guilt. So I just know things, okay? And that's just, my trailblazing ability.
Oh, yes. Yeah, life experience.
So I just started putting it together and I went, oh my goodness. I was so excited. I was tap dancing. I used to tap. I like to tap dance. I was so excited I didn't have to go to therapy for anxiety or anger or depression. I just had to get rid of shame guilt. Wow. How cool is that? And that's when I began to heal quickly.
Wow.
Because I thought if I go to therapy for anger and therapy for anxiety and therapy for not, good enough or whatever, I'll be dead before I'm well because I had them all. Now, then I came to learn that we have energy. We're energy people. And love, everybody knows about love, don't we? And what does love give us? It gives us happiness, and we are confident. We can do a podcast. We can interview on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
We're just like positive people. Nobody has to tell us anything. We're just like communicative. We're compassionate. We're intuitive. We're just like really rocking, right?
Yeah.
And on the other side, we have shame, guilt, negative energy that gives us depression and all sorts of negative.
Yeah. And it's amazing how almost every single person I have talked to in my life, everything seems to stem from childhood. And a lot of people, and me included, really, we forget about things. And it's only when something happens in our life, like a very traumatic situation, that it seems to all be coming back up all of a sudden.
And that's our beautiful human nature that wants.
Yeah.
We are beautiful, wonderful people. But shame, guilt, energy turns positive emotions to negative ones. We don't have negative emotions and positive ones. We have emotions. And compassion turns to depression. Intuition turns to anxiety. Our passion turns to anger. So when we learn about the shame guilt, where it is, kick it out, all our emotions tone back to positive. How cool is that? That's what I do. I help people find the shame guilt that they got when they couldn't get their lollipop, or the guy that you asked for the prom said no, or your
all that build up.
or your mother said you're stupid, or the priest said you're going to die and go to hell. I mean, all your emotions turn to negative. And then you have to get rid of the voices of shame, guilt, and then you just turn positive again.
Yeah. And I was reading about your story, and something jumped at me now that we're talking about this, is that shame guilt is not normal, but it is common.
Yes.
So why do you think that is?
We are beautiful, wonderful beings. And shame, guilt, energy has been put upon us. Now, why do I say that? Some of my beautiful, wonderful hosts have called shame, guilt many different things. Some people call it the shame, guilt leech. Some people call it the shame, guilt evil wizard that messes with your mind. So I'm helping people to see the shame, guilt as a thing that affects your emotions. It is not an emotion. It affects your emotions. Now, why is that true? What does a leech do?
Sucks your blood.
Your blood out. What does the shame guilt leech do? It sucks your light out, your power. When you get rid of the shame guilt leech, you get powerful. It's amazing. Now, shame guilt needs you. It needs all human people because it sucks their energy out, their light energy, and it keeps them alive. When you say no, they have to go away. They have to go leech somebody else because you just got too smart.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I made films. I make shame, guilt, energy visible so you can see it. It's a thing.
Yeah, and I will link actually those films. And you also have a few books that you've written about that too, right?
Yes, I have 3 books, and my podcasts are good. And if you sign up for my newsletter, you get an ebook, and it's called 500 Questions, One Answer. I show you 500 ways you can shame yourself or accept shame guilt from another person, because you have to know your enemy, right? If you don't know
Yeah.
your enemy, how are you going to win? And when the government and your best friend and your teachers and the priests and all say, oh, you're bad, you need to repent. No, I don't. Maybe I'm a mistake here and there, but I'm not bad. God did not make me bad. I'm a good human being.
Mm-hmm.
Say that to me. I don't take it. Now, another thing that's interesting is, how do you feel, or what happens to your computer when you get a computer virus? It's no good. And what do you got to do? You got to get a shame guilt removal program. Now, think of shame guilt energy. Oh, you stupid jerk. Why did you do that? I wouldn't take you to the prom for nothing. Oh, and then you all go inward. Your response is, who's talking? Who's talking? You want to know who your inner critic is. And you and your inner critic got to make a deal. You got to talk to your inner critic. The inner critic's living when you're 5 and 6 and you're like 45 now, and say, hey, come into my timeline. I'm not a 2-year-old anymore. Well, nobody ever told me that. And I got a whole film on how to talk to your inner critic, because your inner critic is your shame guilt producer. So you got to meet the guy or the woman. Oh, you should have done more for your mother. You reneglected yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or you did more for yourself than your mother, or, either way it goes back to guilt and shame. You say, who's talking? Who's talking? And you will get a telepathic feeling. And that's how I help people with making friends with their inner critic. I do all my films and things are free, but I do charge for sessions. And
Yeah.
I had a great session with a person today, and it was marvelous. And she skipped like 10 years of therapy, because she's talking to the part of her, not about the part of her. You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, depression, how are you? You never talk to shame guilt because it's a leech, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just say, get the heck out of here, bye. And then you say, hi, depression, how are you? Hi, anger, what do you have to tell me? And I have films on that as well. First thing is to kick shame guilt out. It doesn't belong to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Lois, for coming on and talking about shame guilt and all the ways that we can
kick it out.
Yeah, kick it out and get started with the awareness as well. I think everybody can benefit from that in their self-care journey for sure. And thank you for sharing your personal stories as well and how you got to that point.
Yeah, I kicked the shame guilt out of the Lord, and he walked away and his head was down. I went, wow, damn, I did good.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. And I will make sure to include all the links so you can reach out to Lois.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
As the last segment for today, I want to share with you the free resource for this week. If you want your own PDF copy of what we're going to talk about today with a few additional tools, make sure you join the newsletter at lymphinitiatives.com/newsletter. You will have access to not only today's PDF, but also a vault that contains all of the past PDF resources that I have shared since the beginning of the year. So the resource this week kind of goes along with the interview that you've just listened to. It is the Cultivating Emotions framework. So it is a series of mindfulness exercises to help have a new perspective on emotions and their role in wellness. We've all heard the saying, I got caught up in my emotions, or my emotions swept me away. But you are not your emotions. Your emotions are simply energy. And like all things made of energy, they have a cycle in which they arise, they last for a little while, and then dissipate. So reflection can help us put emotions in perspective. Through reflection, we learn that there's space between our emotions and our awareness of them. And when given that space and that time, our emotions are able to do their thing and then move on. When we are experiencing an emotion that's particularly strong or frustrating, it's the perfect time to stop and explore. So let's try this with the following exercise today. Take a comfortable seat in a quiet and safe place. Set a timer for 3 or 5 or 7 minutes or more, whatever you have, 2 minutes. Close your eyes. Choose an emotion to work with as the object of your reflection. For example, if working with anger, your intention is to listen, watch, and get curious about anger. Notice where it is in your body, where it feels in your body, and move towards it. Explore all the qualities and details you're able to notice about anger or about that feeling that you're focusing on. Anytime you notice you're telling a story about anger, return to the physical sensation of anger. The goal is to feel the emotion rather than ruminate about its object, history, or source. Notice how the emotion physically moves and changes. It is energy, and all energy arises, lasts for a while, and then dissipates, as I said earlier. Stay with the emotion as your object of reflection until the time is up. So in the PDF this week, I share with you 12 additional questions to reflect on after you do this exercise to start to really dive deeper into this aspect of emotion and try to shift perspective a little bit. So this is what I had for you today in the Lymph Lounge. I'll see you around on the various platforms, Pocket Cast, Apple, Spotify, maybe around on my website, lymphinitiatives.com/podcast, or even on YouTube. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I will see you in the next episode.